Hey everyone, this is Corey with Casual EDC, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Vero Engineering Neuron. This is going to be my full review for you, so before anything else, let's get some size comparisons out of the way. I'm going to bring in the Benchmade bug out, as always, on top, and always the 84mm Victorinox Cadet on the bottom. You can see that it is a small knife, and now that is entirely by design. What's really interesting about the Neuron is that Joseph Vero, the designer and head of Vero Engineering, wanted to make a knife that is essentially legal to carry everywhere, that you're legally allowed to carry a knife. So what's really intriguing about this knife is that it's a double detent, meaning there is no lock. To close this knife, you just apply pressure on the back of the blade, just like you would for a traditional slip joint, but the slip joints operate with springs on the back side, whereas the double detents, you can see it's completely open on the back, have two detent balls on either side, where one engages on the close and two are engaged when it's open, making it a little tougher to close than it is to open, and working as a non-locking type of lock. It's a little tough to explain, but the detent balls prevent it from being closed easily anyway. There's no mechanism locking it in place, but that force does help retain its open position. Now, spec-wise, what makes this legal everywhere is that you have a blade under 3 inches. You have a blade of 2.75 inches with a 2.75 inch cutting length. Your overall length is 6.3 inches. Not sure if that is a legal concern anywhere. M390 steel, sheep's foot style blade, and you have a million deployment methods here. 0.128 inch blade stock, by the way, and about 2 ounces on this. Very, very lightweight. It's just blade, liner, micarta scales, and a pocket clip. So not a whole lot to weigh this guy down. And as I said, many deployment methods. You have this flipper that runs all the way from the front. It's still accessible at the very top all the way to the back. And you also have this groove cut into both sides of the knife. Although this is right hand only carry, this knife can be completely operated right or left handed. You can flip it from the back, you can front flip it like a traditional front flipper, you can reach over the top and pull it back, you can roll your thumb across like almost like you're lighting a lighter. It's not the easiest way to do it, but it's an option. And of course you have the slot, so you can use your thumb or your middle finger, pointer finger, however you choose to reverse flick. And of course, you can always get the other hand involved, pinching the blade open with 2 hands. If one hand opening is a concern in your area, you can say that's what the slot's for. It's for 2-hand opening. Now, this knife is my second knife from Vero Engineering. The first one that I got was the frame lock version of the Axon, which, like I said, is essentially a frame lock, larger version of this. And it really left a sour taste in my mouth. I like Vero as a company. I really enjoyed the Fulcrum that I've had in the past, and I actually had 2 of them. So I've enjoyed some of the products from Vero before, and I was skeptical, but I ordered this one because these were pretty cheap, in comparison anyway, to some of the other models that they have released in the past. Now, the pre-order price was $180 for this. Every other Vero knife that had been released up to this point, maybe excluding the liner lock Axons, was over $300, or very close to being $300. And that's a lot of money to dish out for a knife. Now, these are made by Rayot overseas in China. These are designed by an American, Joseph Vero, as I said. But, you know, it was one of those things that I didn't know if I wanted to dish out the money again, because it just didn't meet the standards I was expecting it to. But with this being so cheap, in comparison. $180 is still a lot of money, but for the double D10 system, all the opening methods, and M390 steel, I thought it was worth giving it a shot. So I did, and this guy arrived after about 4 months from the pre-order or so, 3 or 4 months, so not a super long wait time. Definitely not that immediate satisfaction of getting a shipping number or anything like that. But, it was still nice to see this came in a fairly timely fashion. I've had some other pre-orders I've waited as much as 6 months for, so that was appreciated to get these pretty quick. And I actually was impressed by this when I first opened it. I was, unlike my frame lock Axon, I was not disappointed at all, really. The detent was a little bit light with some cleaning and some oil. It improved a little bit, and it's still definitely on the lighter side on the close and definitely on the open, but nothing too light that you can't get it to deploy. Other than that, it cut really well, which is the bigger thing that I was happy about. Being a smaller blade, you kind of worry sometimes about smaller knives cutting well because there's not as much blade to grind, and the height of the grind tends to get shorter. Now this is a full flat grind. You can see that wedge shape, but the edge gets pretty thin at the edge. The edge, yeah, okay. Well, thank you, Captain Obvious. The edge gets thin at the edge. What I mean is it tapers down to a thin edge, and it honestly never really gets all that thick. It only reaches its full thickness along this line right here, because you have this long swedge that travels down most of the way down the spine, minus maybe 3/4 of an inch, half an inch of your 2.75 inch blade. And you're never really pushing through at the base of the blade as you are skating along material, dragging through and away. So this just cuts better and better as you make your way towards the tip, which is something I always really enjoy on a knife. So this, like I said, it did definitely impress me and make me happy in comparison to my first experience with a Vero knife. And now my overall thoughts on this knife are that if you have a place in your life for a small, non-locking double detent knife and you really like this design, then these are absolutely fantastic and you should jump on these. This is a fantastic utility blade shape, the sheep's foot, as everyone knows. Makes great for cutting open boxes, packages, cutting labels out if you're going to be packing things up. It's just an overall great utility shape. It's an interesting choice, I think, for a, utility blades aren't going to be used hard sometimes. You take things like the Cold Steel Tough Light, and that's got the triad lock on it. Almost forgot the name. Very, very strong lock, very solid ergonomics. You can really dig in and use that knife, kind of like you'd use a razor knife. But with something like this, having no locking mechanism, it's definitely more geared towards everyday carry and people who either don't like a lock or can't have a lock. This is a really, really compelling option. Now, I personally am not going to be keeping mine, as I have small knives like my TRM Neutron, which right now is on loan, wearing the titanium scales to Knife Nerdery. Another great YouTube channel. You should absolutely check him out. But I own enough smaller knives. I have things like, sorry, I was not planning on talking about this, but I have things like the Trevor Burger Knives Urban, which is a frame lock, which you can see is just a slightly larger overall size than this. And it has a hollow grind and M390 steel, which is, this is M390 as well, but that's got a hollow grind and a lock on it. So I'm going to take the Urban over this basically any day, unless I was restricted by laws. But ergonomically, the smaller size here is solid. The big size did not work for me. This does work really well. The pocket clip works great, just enough ramp to get it in the pocket. It's a very classy pocket clip. I like these milled style clips. See, it fits in nice. The fit and finish is great on these. One issue that I do want to point out that I had until I sharpened this was that this area right up here on the blade was actually making contact with this standoff here. Now, there is a sizable gap, which I don't know how much you'll be able to see, but that edge is clearly not touching that. And I can even squeeze this pretty hard, and you can see I'm putting pressure on that, and there's still a gap. You can see how much that moved. There's still space, though. Something about that slamming it closed action like this, there was enough force to be making contact with that post. And I know some people in the Vero Facebook group mentioned that it happened. And I know that Joseph was taking care of them and making sure that they got replacements. But it was just barely nicking that edge. So one little sharpen where I really did not remove much material at all. I just maintained the existing factory edge. It took that issue right out. So just worth mentioning that if you do get one of these, you might want to check that front half an inch, quarter inch or so, just to see if you have any marks from that hitting the standoff. So worth noting, definitely, in my opinion. But anyway, back to my closing thoughts here. Very, very interesting knife. Non-locking is nice to see because it opens up the possibilities for people around the world, especially being under the 3-inch blade and having both 1 and 2 hand opening capabilities. That makes this really nice for the folks who need to maintain legality in their areas when they carry knives. So great option for you if you're looking for that kind of a thing. And even if you're not, you like the design, you don't, you either like or don't have any opinion on double detents, then yeah, these are great. And I hope that he's able to have these in stock the same kind of way that he had the Axon liner lock in stock for a long time. And I think a lot of people will really enjoy the Vero Neuron for a long time. Just not the knife for me, but certainly can fit in a lot of people's collections. That's going to be it from me today, because if I keep talking, it's going to be way too long and not make any sense. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it, and have a great rest of your day. Take care.